How's it going, guys? Welcome back to a new video on the Ford F-150 rebuild. Today, we're going to be doing some body work and painting the insides of the jambs and the doors. As you guys saw in the last video, we installed all of our lights. If you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out because we installed a ton of lights. Every single light on this entire truck has been changed out. If you did see the last video, I actually put the license plate mount and I mounted the license plate in the middle instead of on the left here. I think it makes it look a little more OEM, and I also think it looks a lot better with the whole grille and everything. Also, in the last video, I didn't really like the third brake light, so I got the OPT7 third brake light. Looks really good. It's a lot brighter than the old one, and it matches the brightness of our taillights, which are extremely bright. But this is how the truck is looking right now. I went ahead and got Big Bertha up here with the lift kit. Obviously the engine, everything's torn down. I've sold a little bit of things off here and there, the engine, etc. What we need to do on this truck is take off the door panel, window, and basically everything that's in the way of painting the inside of the door here, and have all the gaps and everything set so that way they can spray it and put everything back together and it basically be done. So that took me about 30 minutes to really get everything off. Glass and basically all of the components, I put them right there. And I'm not really gonna use them. I'm gonna use the ones that came with the original door, which is currently on the white F-150. But one thing I did notice right here is a little bit of rust around this door on the inside. You don't see it from the outside here because these two pieces are actually split. You can see that. Worries me a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and clean all that up once I get this off of the car. But for now, there's one last thing I need to remove, which is this. And the reason I need to remove that is because it kind of overlaps the inside right here, and I wanna make sure I get this edge really well. Basically, the only thing that's holding this in is a clip here, which got ripped off, and then one right here, which is kind of broken. So expect to break those, and just some double-sided tape on either side. All right, so I was able to get the door and the fender off. In order to get the door off, you're gonna have to get the fender off. So I went ahead and did that. On the fender, there is a little bit of rust down here, but nothing too crazy. On the fender, what we need to mainly focus on painting is the inside right here, as well as this area that you see underneath the hood. And this isn't crucial, but you do see this when you have the headlights out, so you probably want to paint the inside of that as well. Now, I only have a quart of paint, so hopefully that's enough to do all of this. I think it will be. Another thing I need to do before I put the door and everything back on is I need to paint these. I've already got these basically set to where they need to be, and I don't want to remove them. So I'm not sure if I'll actually paint these the stock color. I might just use a gloss black spray paint and tape all this off and then spray these gloss black. So it's the next day here. I've been doing a lot of things kind of off camera because it's kind of repetitive, but I went ahead and got the fender and the door all done. This is what the fender is looking like right now. All these edges are sanded down to about 600 grit. Some of the areas where it had rust around this area, I had to sand down a little bit more aggressive. I believe I used like a 320 grit, and then I kind of sanded up. You can still see some of the scratch marks in here, and I could have got it perfect, but this is not visible, so I'm not gonna really focus on that too much. We did have a little bit of rust down here as well, and I sanded that down to the best that I could on both sides. It's still a little visible, you can still see a little bit of rust, but it's just a fender, so I'm not gonna spend an hour trying to fix this. At that point, I might as well just buy a new fender. And this is a truck, so it's gonna rust eventually. The bottom of the door was a little bit rusted right here, so I sprayed that with some self-etching primer. I use this stuff because it bonds really well to metal. All of this is scuffed. I'm gonna paint around this tape line right here. And on the inside of the door, as you can see, it's pretty rusted in there. It's actually rusted through one of the tabs, but it is still holding, so hopefully that doesn't break off in the near future. I'm gonna let that stuff dry for a little bit, and then I might do a little bit more sanding once it's completely dried. You guys saw that I did do the door hinges. They're still drying right now. The tarp kind of got on it a little bit, but this is something that you don't see. As long as it's the color, the right color, you won't notice it. So I'm not too worried about that. If I have to, I'll get like a brush and brush inside there. But all of these bolts are where I need them. It's very difficult to get to this one right here. You have to pop out the inside of the trim and all that. So that's why I wanted to leave these on here and paint them. So while all that stuff is drying, I'm gonna run to the store, grab some stuff that I need to paint all this, and hopefully we can get it done tonight. If not, we'll do it tomorrow morning when it's less wind and less bugs. This is the paint that I'm using, brand off of eBay. They had some pretty good reviews, so I'm gonna try them out. And then this is the clear coat that I'm gonna be using. It's a 2-part, so it has the base right here and then the activator. So we're gonna go ahead and mix this up. I'm not exactly sure how much I'm gonna need, but I'm gonna mix about probably 3/4 of this. Went ahead and laid down the first coat. I think I'm gonna do 3 light coats because last time when I painted the BMW, the metallics started to fade a little bit, so I don't want the metallics to fade on this, basically start dripping off. As you can see, the air compressor just kicked off. That thing can barely keep up with just painting the inside of these panels, so if I paint any more, I might have to upgrade that soon. But here's what it looks like so far. As I said, just a thin coat. You can still see the white quite a bit. Can't see really the metallics just yet because there's not enough paint on there. As you can see when you look back here, you can kind of see all those scratch marks from when I was trying to remove the rust. I'm not too worried about that. All I did was did that on the places where you couldn't see. I was gonna paint the interior parts right here, but just a flat black to save paint. But I went ahead and just sprayed it because I think I'm gonna have plenty of paint to do all this. As you can see, this is looking pretty smooth here. Whenever I spray it, it looks very orange peely, as it does right now, but it looked way worse. It's still kind of drying right now. But I believe it's still flashing just a little bit. So I'll give it probably like 5 minutes or so. It's pretty hot and humid out here, so that shouldn't take too long. And I believe it has a medium activator as well. So go ahead and let that dry a little bit more, and then spray 2 more coats. Second coat is on. One thing I'm starting to notice is, I actually noticed this before I started painting this, but it's a lot more visible in the black. All these little spots you see are actually rust spots where the white paint is starting to bubble a little bit. I probably should have addressed that, but I believe most of this is covered anyways and you don't see it. So I'm not too worried about that. Otherwise, it's still flashing right now, but it is drying a lot more flat. Still a little orange peely in some areas. That's probably on me for not painting it very evenly. But like I said, you don't see any of this from the outside of the car. This fender, I'm going to do 1 more coat of base coat, and then I'm going to actually move it over there because it does not need clear coat on the inside of these fenders. It actually is just plain base coat on the inside. So that will be done once I get the 3rd coat on. And this one, I'm gonna need to clear coat the entire inside. So I'll go ahead and let this dry for a little bit longer and we'll hit it with the 3rd coat. All right, so I gave this panel an extra long time to dry because I want to throw another heavy coat on there. If you look, you can still kind of see some areas where it's white, but you can start to see the metallics on this tuxedo black. It's looking really smooth. I'm really happy that this is drying more flat because I was a little bit worried, but it is looking pretty good. Right here especially, it is just super smooth. Really love that. So you can see right now the sun is actually hitting it, which is not ideal because that means this area down here is going to dry faster than this. So whenever I spray this, in order for it to dry kind of evenly, I'm going to spray this first. Then I'm going to hop on this panel because it is outside of the sun, and then I'll hop on this bottom part right here where the sun is touching. That way it just dries more evenly. I would try to move this over, but I don't want to risk this thing falling over or anything. As you can see right here, it's a little tacky. It's still kind of leaving a mark there, but when you come down here, okay, it is down here. So I'm gonna let it dry for probably another 5 minutes or so, and then I'll throw on the 3rd coat. All right guys, so I went ahead and sprayed the 3rd coat pretty heavy. I accidentally didn't film it, but let's go ahead and look at that. I believe that thick coat at the end just really kind of ties everything together. You can really see the metallics out in the sun. It's super smooth in that area. You can see down here it's a little orange peely, but it's not terrible. It's nothing you're gonna really see. It's kind of hard to see up in this area because it's in the shadows. Fender's looking all right, except the tarp is kind of sticking to it a little bit. That's gonna get wet sanded though anyways. But it's looking all right. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off and set it to the side. It's still just a little bit tacky there. I'm gonna wait probably another 15 minutes. I've already waited probably 15 minutes. I went ahead and cleaned the gun and everything, got the clear coat ready to mix. But for now, I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit longer. Yep, still tacky. So we'll let it dry for probably another 15 minutes and then we'll go ahead and shoot this door with some clear. When mixing this clear coat, it's a 4-to-1 ratio. So as you can see, we got 4-to-1 right here. I went ahead and marked where I need to pour. So we're gonna pour with the clear coat here up to the 3. I'm gonna do 3 as is basically how much you want to pour. If you want to pour you know, this much, go with the 2s. If you want to pour this much, go with the 1s. I'm probably going to use 3. I might even need to pour some more, but we're going to go ahead and start with this because this is the highest amount we can do. So I'll pour this up to the first 3. Okay. And then we have our activator. We're going to pour this up to the second 3. So now that the clear coat's all mixed, I'm going to go ahead and use this Bondo tack cloth. This is just going to get all of the trash and like little bugs and tree limb things that have fallen on the paint as it has been drying. Hopefully this will get most of it off before we spray our clear coat. So first coat of clear. It's very orange peely, but it's still drying. I got another probably like 8 minutes or so till it's done flashing, and hopefully it kind of levels out like it did with the first coat of base coat. But so far we're going to keep rolling. I'm probably going to do like 3 or 4 coats. Just depends on how much paint I got. But I think what we mixed up is going to be just enough to get this done. I went ahead and laid the clear coat down all off camera. I did 4 coats. 3 of them were pretty light to medium coats, and the 4th one was pretty heavy to medium. I'll go ahead and show you guys. It's turning out pretty good. There's no runs. As you can see, there is still a little bit of orange peel. It's kind of going away as it dries. I went ahead and moved it out in the sun so they can go ahead and bake. Hopefully that flattens the clear coat out a little bit more. But you can definitely see those metallics. It's looking really, really good. I'm really pleased with this. The inside of the fender right here is honestly looking better than it does on the OEM one. That's not a bad thing, but this definitely seems a lot more glossier. We'll see what happens whenever it dries. But as for the trash and everything, there's little things here and there that I could nitpick. But as you guys saw, I did tack cloth it, and that got rid of most of it. But I'm really pleased with this paint job. I'll show you guys this angle right here. That tuxedo black looks really, really good. I almost want to paint the G35 coupe that I have this color because it's just a flat black with no metallics in it. This looks really good. But I'll go ahead and let this paint bake for about a day before I start handling it and putting everything back on the car. So I'm gonna quit talking and I'll catch you guys in the morning. New day here. Went ahead and popped on the door. The door is completely dried. It's looking pretty good. I mean, the orange peel is definitely visible, so it'll need to be buffed out, but this is what it's looking like so far. Went ahead and got the door hinge thing in there as well. You can definitely see the orange peel right here. Anywhere where there's a vertical spot or that had a slight slant to it, it got orange peel on it. Any spot that's flat, it looks pretty good. Like down here, it looks really good. As for the fender, it's still a little bit tacky. It is about 24 hours after I painted it, so it's not uncommon for it to be tacky still. You can see right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and let it dry for probably another 24 hours before I throw it on. But at this point, we can go ahead and start taking off the door panel on the white truck here. This window and this panel and all the other components need to go on to that truck. I'm not gonna be reusing that harness because this one has the buttons here and the other one does not. So I'm assuming that this has some type of connector in here that one doesn't. So I'll need to transfer that over. And also all these like grommets, little things like this, all need to be transferred onto that. So I went ahead and got everything put together back on the inside and the outside of the door. Here's what the outside is looking like. Got the new handle right here as well. We're still waiting to put this piece on because you got to put adhesive on here, and I want to get this completely painted before I do that because it's not really sealing anything. It is just basically a trim piece. Got the mirrors and all of the gaskets put in. This handle right here, whenever I was trying to change the passcode on this, it was asking for the factory reset code. And unfortunately, that is on the back of this entire handle. And I didn't take a picture or look at it before I put the whole interior back together. So I guess we'll have to do that some other time, so I can't really test that. But here is the inside. It's looking pretty good. As you can tell, we got complete coverage all the way around. I was kind of worried about this area because I noticed on the other panel is really close to the edge here, but looks like we're just fine. And it honestly looks like factory. Unless you're really in the sunlight, you're looking right at this area and seeing all the orange peel, it looks pretty much like factory. It looks pretty good. The paint matches really well. Flake here, there you go. You can see the orange peel up here, but don't focus too much on that. Try to focus on the areas where it is at the metallics. Let's see. This orange peel is really bad up here, but it's the best sunlight. And here is the factory paint. There's still a lot of swirl marks, but that can easily get polished out. As for the door and the speaker, everything works. Speaker is actually a little bit different because this is the Sony sound system, and the one I pulled out, it just said like made from China. It was a Ford Motor Co. Another thing this door card has that the other one does not, it has a fold and unfold mirror button here. So you can see, you pull this, the mirrors fold in, and then you pull it again and they'll fold back out. So that's really cool. I didn't know that was a feature until I put this door card back on. Other than that, that's pretty much it. The door unlocks and locks, and then when you lock it, the most important thing is that when you pull this, it doesn't open, so that works. As for around this whole area, I primed it pretty good, but it's starting to come off just a little bit because this handle is extremely hard to put on. When I go to take this thing in for paint, I'm going to remove this. That way they don't have to struggle removing it and damaging it anymore. As for the rest of the stuff, it's really easy to pull off, but we'll go ahead and wait on that. It's crazy. The fender is still drying out here. It is still drying, so I might have to wait, honestly, a week to put this on because it's just super humid out here. I'm not really sure why the door dried before this, and that has clear coat on it as well, so it makes me kind of worried that maybe the base coat underneath is still kind of mushy and tacky like this one is. As for the underneath of the hood, I'm probably going to order some more paint and try to get that painted just to save a little bit of money on not having a paint shop paint all this. It's also quite a hassle removing all this and putting it all back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and order some more paint. I probably only need about a pint of paint. Sorry, the wind's really kicking up right now, but I have a little bit of paint left over. So with that mixed with the pint of paint that I have, it should be just enough to paint the underneath of the hood. I went ahead and got the fender all bolted up. I'll do the final adjustments when everything is painted, but here's what it looks like right now. I got the fender liner and everything in as well. The gaps aren't like perfect. So you can see there's still a lot of flex here, but the hood is definitely not perfect, so I can't really align this area too much. But it's all bolted down. Fender liner is exactly where it needs to be. This little piece right here will need to be removed whenever it's painted. Obviously the upper front bumper and the lower front bumper will come off as well to be painted. And I actually got some more paint that finally came in. I got the underneath of the hood to do, so we'll go ahead and take that off. But before I do that, I actually got something in the mail that I really want to put on. And that is these Bora wheel spacers right here. I got these used on eBay for around $100, which is really good. for wheel spacers, especially for this brand. This is probably the best brand that you can get in terms of wheel spacers. These are a 2-inch spacer, so they'll stick out quite a bit. But with the stock wheels on this, I think it will honestly look pretty good because they are inset quite a bit, especially with the little flares. I know I mentioned that I was going to run the flares that were on the white truck. I actually went against that idea, but I'm actually gonna pick up some ones that have a smooth black finish. They don't have the bolts showing. I wasn't a big fan of the bolts showing. I just want this thing to look somewhat factory. I know the grill's kind of showy. I'm still thinking I might get like the OEM grill or something, but for right now, we're gonna go ahead and put these spacers on and see what it looks like. Went ahead and got all 4 corners done. I think it looks pretty spot on with the factory flares here. I'm not sure how big this is. I'm assuming maybe 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, but that's pretty spot on. I honestly think that the front could use a 1.5. The rear is not flush, but it does stick out slightly, but this one sticks out just a little bit more. It looks pretty odd without a fender flare here. It almost looks like there's about 2 inches sticking out. But the rear is pretty damn good. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm really not a big fan of cars that have wheels that are kind of offset like this. I kind of like them flush, but with the truck, I like a little bit of offset. I think it gives it a little bit more of an aggressive off-road kind of style. I know a lot of the show trucks kind of run that super wide, like 5 inches sticking out from the fender, but I like it like this. I think once I do throw the fenders on, I think it's honestly going to kind of be flush, but like I said, I'll probably be running some different wheels. I believe the offset on these stock rims are a positive 44. They're 20 by 8.5s on all 4. It's been about a week since the last clip you guys have seen. I've been driving this truck around quite a bit since then, and there's actually an issue that has popped up or actually become more prevalent, and it involves the engine. So what is actually happening is when I am at a standstill or even at low speeds, I will lose oil pressure. Now, what I believe is the culprit is the oil filter that I have currently on the truck. It is a Fram filter. In either the first or second episode, you guys saw that I did change the oil on this. I used a very cheap filter. I did mention that I was going to replace the whole timing chain assembly because it was making the dreaded cam phaser rattle. So I wanted to get all that sorted out just so I'd have a very reliable truck. Now, from the research that I've done, you can let this go for a little bit, but you eventually want to change it. But I don't want to do it anytime this year. I probably will wait till next year, but I really need to get that oil filter changed because the current oil and the filter that I have on the truck could be doing damage to the engine. I really don't want to damage this engine, so we're gonna go ahead and fix that. I got a OEM Ford Motorcraft filter here. There is the part number right there. Along with that, we got a new bolt and crush washer. And you guys have seen me use this stuff in the first or second episode. It's very cheap. I went ahead and gave it a shot, and I think it worked pretty well with cleaning out a lot of the oil deposits. You basically pour this into your cold engine crankcase, allow it to run for about 5 minutes, and then shut off the engine. You don't want to rev it or anything. Just let it run for 5 minutes and heat up and then turn it off. As for oil, we are going 5W30 Castrol. We're going full synthetic. You need 6 quarts. I couldn't find the matching Castrol in just the 1 quart. So we're mixed matching brands, but they are both the same weight oil and they're both full synthetic. So they should work just fine. Along with the oil change, I'm gonna go ahead and replace this sensor. This is the oil pressure sensor. I'm sure it's fine in the car, but I'm just gonna go ahead and replace it because we're already draining the oil. Now, along with all of this stuff, I'm also going to be replacing the oil pan. It is leaking on this truck. I want to get that sorted out while I'm doing the oil change. It's nothing that you'll have to remove whenever I do the timing chain, so I'm going to go ahead and knock it out now. Now for the oil pan, there may be an aftermarket solution for a rubber gasket. I'm going to go ahead and use what the OEM manufacturer uses, which is a silicone gasket maker. This is just some Permatex Ultra Gray. It's not very expensive, and I believe it will do the job. So let's go ahead and get to work draining the oil and getting the old oil pan out. The oil pan is right here. As you can see, I believe it's leaking right on the passenger side here. It's just super oily. I bet this has been leaking for a really long time. On the left side, looks pretty dry, nothing too crazy. But it looks like we're going to have to either remove this differential or drop it down, because we are not going to be able to even remove these bolts with this in the way. Also, I believe the oil pressure sensor is somewhere up in there, kind of by the steering rack, which is directly underneath this differential. I believe you can get it from the top, but you guys see how like oily and everything this is. I really can't even tell what I'm looking at because it's just so oily. As you can see, there's a bunch of lines and stuff over here. I'm gonna go ahead and get the power washer and wash all this. One thing I did notice, this is something to keep in mind. Right there is the turbo, and that is a coolant line. You can see we got a little bit of coolant dripping, some right there, and it's dripping on whatever that heat shield is right there. So that might be a job for the future, but for right now, let's go ahead and wash the underside of this. All right, so I went ahead and got all of the piping and everything that was kind of in the way. I don't think I needed to remove the coolant reservoir thing and all that, but I went ahead and just did it just to get you guys a better view. But let's go ahead and look down here. So I got the cold side piping off just on this side. This is the hot side. If you look down there, you see that little white connector? that is pretty much what we're after, that sensor right there. It is a 21 millimeter. If you have a deep socket, you can pull that connector off and you're able to get that off with a deep socket. That is what I'm gonna try to do, but see if I can get this connector off. No luck using the socket. I actually had to use a box wrench, but I got it out. Once you get it loose, you can just easily unthread it by hand. And there we go. Looks like it might be a little bit clogged up. It is just a 1-pin sensor. This one has like a little grommet in there. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up and pop it in the new one. I was able to get everything on the top of the engine pretty much done. The oil sensor is all torqued down and the connector's all plugged in and everything is put back together. Anyways, let's go ahead and jack the truck back up and get back underneath the engine. I counted every single bolt that will need to be removed from this pan, and I counted 23. So that's including these ones that go through the transmission here. There's 3 of them. There's a bunch of 10s all the way around on both sides. And up in here in the front, there are a few bolts. I believe there's like 4 up in the front here that you'll have to get. The way that you could probably get to those is underneath here where the shield is for the oil filter. Just pull that down a little bit and you should be able to get them up there. You guys probably have a better view of that than me. So I don't even know what that looks like. So that's what that looks like. One thing that is going to be difficult is getting the bolts that are around this differential. We don't need to fully remove the differential, but we need to lower it about 4 or 5 inches. On the driver's side here, that one I already have removed. That one is a 21 millimeter. The one over here is an 18. And there's one more. Actually right there, I see I have a socket on it. And that one is an 18 as well. And if you're wondering how to get to that, because you can't really fit anything up here, extension all the way right here to where the oil pan cover is. I have it down right here. So that's how you'll get to that. All right, so I'm pretty sure I got all the bolts out. I did confirm that there is 4 bolts in the front here. The best way to get them is to remove that little shield there. There's like 3 8-mils. There it is right there. All that is just for the oil filter to kind of drain it whenever you pull it off. But I pulled that off, and that way you're able to kind of feel up here and just see exactly where all the bolts are. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that last bolt, and we'll try to pull this pan down. Wow guys, okay, so I forgot some very simple bolts. There's actually 2 right in these holes. I don't know how I forgot them. It looks to be 8-mils. That's weird. These little 8-mils go right in these holes. Oh, it's like water in here for me washing it. So I've been looking through this residual oil that was in here. And the good news is I don't see any plastic from chain guides or anything. That's just RTV that was left in the, around the seal, kind of fell in there. But yeah, nothing too serious in there. I don't really see any like serious metal or anything. I'll go ahead and dump this, get it all cleaned up, and show you guys what it looks like. Got all the mating surfaces clean on this, and try to get all of the heavy deposits that were in here that might get mixed in with the new oil. As for the backside here, I just got all the grease and grime off, just to be able to visually tell that once I put this back, that there is no new leaks. This is all ready to go. All right, this is what we're looking at underneath here. Got all the mating surfaces cleaned as well as I can. I still need to do one more wipe down with brake clean, but all the old RTV is off. You want to make sure you check this screen, make sure there's no plastic chain guides or anything in there. So most of the time they'll be stuck in there. Might kind of affect your oil pressure just a little bit. You don't want that to be clogged up. But as you can see, this engine definitely did not have regular oil changes. There's a lot of deposits and things on here. I'm hoping it's just the bottom end here that is like that. But I'm sure once I pull the valve covers off, it will probably be something similar. As you can see, you look in here, that looks pretty bad. So one of the reasons your phasers go bad is because of old oil and not changing your oil enough. These deposits can get clogged in your phasers and allow them to start rattling. So I believe if you do regular oil changes and everything, you can avoid the EcoBoost timing chain rattle. For now, this is going to be very difficult for me to show you guys me putting this in there, but you want to do one continuous bead, just one bead. Don't smear it on or anything, because if you were to just smear it on, the RTV would be very thin on the sides. Once you compress it, it will come out a little bit, and because it's thin, it will fall into your oil. So you don't want to do that. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up one last time and apply the RTV to the pan. All right, so I did have to remove the differential. There just wasn't enough room to fit this up in here. It's actually quite simple to remove. I just had to do one ball joint up here, and I was able to slide this axle out. They just slide off. You can use a pry bar or something, pry that off, and then I was able to basically pry this one off and slide the differential this way and down. It's not very heavy. It's maybe like 70 pounds. You can use a transmission jack or something if you need to, but otherwise you can just hold it and let it lay down on the ground once you get it down there. But all these are torqued. There is torque specs for these. You can find them online. These ones, these 10 millimeters, they all go to 177 inch-pounds, and then the 8 millimeters in here go to 89. And then once you get all those put on, there is an extra degree of torque that you need to put, so make sure you look up all that. So it's actually the next day here. The RTV is all dried here. I did a little sample right here. Yesterday I went ahead and got everything put back together. The differential was really easy to get out, but it was really hard to put back in for whatever reason. As I mentioned before, I ended up removing that upper ball joint right here. Now to get the differential back in, I actually had to remove the other side as well, just because that left axle just kept wanting to hit the differential when I was trying to raise it. But once I got it up there with the transmission jack, it was pretty simple. I recommend not using the transmission jack if you can, because you do have to kind of rotate the differential in a weird way to get it up there. It kind of hits the oil pan and then part of the frame, so you kind of have to twist it a little bit. So it'd be much easier if you just had two people underneath there instead of a transmission jack and one person. But that's what I had to deal with. We're gonna go ahead and start putting the oil in. We'll probably give it a couple cranks, the way to crank it without actually starting the engine. This is what I've been doing just to kind of prolong me doing the timing chain job, is actually floor the gas pedal and then start it and keep your foot floored. You should be able to crank it for about 6 seconds, then let off, and repeat that 3 or 4 times. And that should get the oil circulated through the phasers and the rest of the oil galleys. not having any leaks. All of that wetness right there is actually just water from whenever I washed it. I guess the engine kind of shake a little bit and it started to come out, but that's just water. Our coolant leak for our turbo kind of stopped, so it's kind of like intermittent. I might need to do something about that at some point. Engine sounds buttery smooth. And most importantly, we don't have the oil pressure light. All right guys, so it's actually about 6 months after that last clip. I've just been kind of driving the truck around. I will say right now, the truck is all one color, it's all black. I'm not gonna spoil too much. In the next video, I believe it will be part 6 of this series. The truck will be completely done pretty much without the lift kit or really any other mods. But it will be completely done. It will probably be the biggest video that I have so far in terms of length. I know this one's pretty long right now. We're reaching about that 50-minute mark, but I just want to say the truck is doing good right now. The oil pan and everything has stopped leaking. I actually think the oil pan wasn't leaking from the start. I did the valve covers and everything because the valve covers were leaking onto the exhaust manifolds or the downpipes or whatever, making it smoke, making the cabin smell like burnt oil. I actually found another leak. It comes from the vacuum pump on the passenger side. There's some O-rings and everything that need to be replaced. I'm about to do that right now. I did the valve covers and everything off camera just because it's pretty simple. I don't want to make this video super long of just a bunch of maintenance stuff. This is about the rebuild of the truck. But mods are coming right now. I actually got something in the back. You could probably hear it rattling around. But I put that on right now as well. But I just figured I'd close out this video by saying this truck is running pretty good. Other than the timing chain rattle seems to be picking up a little bit, so I probably need to get pretty serious on picking out those parts and getting that job done. But anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Pretty long editing process on this one, so make sure to leave a thumbs up and comment any questions or anything that you have, but I'll see you guys in the next video.